Welcome to Echoes of Ihsan, the show where we, take deep dives into some of the most fascinating Islamic texts.
That's right.
And today we're diving into Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 21, and it's all about food.
It's a fascinating book.
Yeah, and it really gives us this really unique glimpse into, the social and spiritual etiquette surrounding food and hospitality,
Hmm.
as taught by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
And it really is a treasure trove of wisdom, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this book covers like everything.
It really does.
I mean, from accepting invitations
Right.
to like table manners to
Mhm.
even like what the Prophet, peace be upon him, said about specific foods.
It's amazing. It's like, you open this book and you're suddenly transported back in time.
Yeah.
You get to see how people lived, what they valued.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
And what I find really interesting is how many of these teachings are still relevant today.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like a blueprint for mindful eating and gracious hosting that just like transcends time and culture.
I completely agree. It's timeless wisdom.
Yeah.
The idea that food isn't just about sustenance.
Right.
It's about community,
Yeah.
about spirituality,
Yeah.
about connection.
Exactly. So let's dive right in, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the very first hadith in this book, Hadith 3732,
Okay.
it says that declining an invitation is considered disobedience to Allah and his messenger.
Hmm.
That's a pretty strong statement, wouldn't you say?
It is a strong statement, but it really highlights the importance Islam places on community and on strengthening those social bonds.
Right. And it's not just about, like the food itself.
Yeah.
It's about that social act of sharing a meal and connecting with other people.
Exactly. Exactly. You're honoring the host. You're showing respect.
Yeah.
It's about the relationship.
Yeah. Do you think we've kind of lost sight of that a little bit in modern society?
It's easy to get caught up,
Yeah.
in our busy lives, our schedules. We prioritize, convenience
Right.
over those social connections, perhaps.
Yeah, it makes me think about like all the times that I've like declined invitations.
Yeah.
Because I'm tired or I have too much work to do.
Right.
And maybe I need to kind of like reevaluate my priorities a bit
Yeah.
and make more space for those like shared experiences.
I think that's something we can all reflect on,
Yeah.
Even small gatherings, they can have a huge impact on our well-being,
Yeah,
on our sense of belonging.
absolutely. Okay, so speaking of gatherings, let's talk about wedding feasts
Okay.
because Sunan Abu Dawud has some interesting guidelines about those,
It does.
specifically in Hadiths 3735 and 3736.
Okay.
It says that a feast on the first day of a wedding is obligatory, the second day is a good practice, but the third day is for show. Yeah,
Interesting.
what do you make of that?
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? It seems to strike that balance between celebrating and practicality,
Yeah.
encouraging that sharing of joy with the community, but also discouraging, extravagance,
Right.
ostentation.
Right.
So the first day, it's about fulfilling that obligation of hosting and celebrating with your loved ones.
Hmm.
The second day, it's an extension of that generosity. It's a chance for those who couldn't make it on the first day to join in.
Right.
But then by the third day, the focus kind of shifts, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
moves away from genuine celebration and into outward appearances, which, is discouraged.
Yeah, it's like there's a wisdom in knowing like when to draw the line,
Yeah, yeah,
like celebrate, but don't let it turn into something superficial or competitive.
exactly. Focus on the true spirit of the occasion, the
Yeah.
joy of the union,
Yeah.
the strengthening of family ties.
Okay. Let's shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and talk about hospitality because Sunan Abu Dawud has a lot to say about the importance of welcoming guests
It does.
and treating them with generosity.
Oh, yes.
Hadiths 3738, 3740, 3741, and 3742.
Mm,
They all kind of speak to this theme.
they do.
They emphasize that duty of a Muslim to provide for a guest.
Absolutely.
Hadith 3740 specifically mentions that hospitality extends for 3 days, after which it becomes charity.
That's right.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Of course. So imagine, you're traveling in a time without hotels, without restaurants.
Right.
You're completely reliant on the kindness of strangers
Yeah.
for food, for shelter.
Right.
And this 3-day rule, it was really a way to ensure that travelers and those in need were cared for
Right.
within the community.
Right.
It's like a built-in social safety net.
Wow. That's amazing.
It is, isn't it?
It's like hospitality was like more than just a social custom.
Yes.
There's like a social responsibility.
Precisely. It reflects that Islamic emphasis on caring for the vulnerable,
Yeah.
making sure everyone has their basic needs met.
It's a beautiful concept.
It is. It is. And it reminds us that hospitality is not just about fancy meals or, elaborate decorations.
Right.
It's about opening your heart, your home to others.
Yeah.
And offering them a sense of welcome, a sense of belonging.
Yeah. Speaking of opening your home, there's an interesting hadith, number 3744, that talks about eating at another person's house.
Okay.
It mentions that after a particular verse was revealed, there was some initial uncertainty among early Muslims.
Yes.
Right.
About whether it was still permissible.
Right, exactly.
There is a verse in Surah An-Nisa,
Right.
which really encourages trade and commerce
Okay.
by mutual consent.
Right.
But some people interpreted that as discouraging the acceptance of, free meals.
Okay.
Thinking it might fall under the category of consuming wealth unjustly.
Right. So it was like a gray area for a bit.
It was. But then, later on in Surah Nur, there was a clarification.
Oh.
And that clarification really put those concerns to rest.
Okay.
It emphasized that sharing food with others, whether as a guest or as a host, was absolutely acceptable.
Okay.
And even encouraged,
Okay.
as long as it's done with good intentions and mutual consent.
Got it. So it's really about like that intention.
It is. It's about the spirit in which it's done.
Right, exactly. And that's a great example of how like seeking clarification and understanding the context
Oh, absolutely.
of verses is so crucial.
Absolutely crucial.
Yeah. And it shows that, even during the Prophet's, peace be upon him, time, there were questions
Right.
and evolving understandings of religious teachings.
Exactly. That process of learning and applying religious principles, it's ongoing. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And seeking knowledge and clarification, it's essential.
Absolutely. There's another hadith that I found quite thought-provoking. It's Hadith 3745, which states that the Prophet, peace be upon him, forbade eating the food of two people who were rivals.
That's an interesting one. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it makes me think about the importance of neutrality and peacemaking. By refusing to eat from either rival, you're essentially refusing to be drawn into their conflict. Like a silent statement of non-alignment.
That's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
It highlights those subtle ways that our actions, even something as simple as accepting a meal, can have broader social implications.
Yeah.
It's a reminder to be mindful of our choices.
Yeah.
And how they might impact those relationships, the dynamics within our community.
It's like a reminder to be a peacemaker.
Exactly.
Even in those subtle ways.
And to avoid actions that might exacerbate tensions or, fuel conflict.
Right. Okay. Here's another hadith that I found pretty intriguing. It's Hadith 3746, where the Prophet, peace be upon him, declined an invitation because the house was overly decorated. So what's the significance of that?
Well, that hadith really speaks volumes about the Prophet's humility.
Yeah?
His preference for simplicity over, lavish displays. It suggests that the true essence of hospitality lies not in outward appearances, but in the warmth, in the generosity we offer our guests.
Makes you think about how much emphasis we place on appearances, especially when hosting.
We do, don't we?
Yeah.
In a world obsessed with appearances, it's easy to get caught up in that need to impress.
Right.
Rather than to simply connect.
Yeah. It's a reminder that true hospitality comes from the heart.
Exactly.
Not from the decor.
Absolutely. And sometimes simplicity can be much more welcoming.
Yeah.
Much more meaningful than extravagance.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Hadith 3749, which is short, but powerful.
Okay.
It just says, prayer should not be postponed for meals or anything else. So that really underscores the central place of prayer in a Muslim's life.
Absolutely. It's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
It takes precedence over all worldly matters.
Right.
Even something as essential as eating.
Yeah. It highlights the importance of discipline and prioritizing spiritual obligations.
Exactly. It's a reminder that our connection with the divine should always be at the forefront of our minds.
Yeah.
And our actions.
Okay. Get ready for a feast of fascinating details.
Okay.
Because Sunan Abu Dawud dedicates a significant portion to eating habits.
It does.
And etiquette.
It's like a comprehensive guide to mindful dining.
Yeah.
blending practicality, hygiene, social awareness.
Let's dive into a few specific examples.
Okay.
Hadiths 3750, 3751, and 3752.
Okay.
They all emphasize the importance of ablution, or ritual washing, before meals. So what's the significance of that?
Well, you know, ablution, it's such a beautiful practice.
Yeah.
It cleanses both physically and spiritually. It prepares you for the act of eating with mindfulness and intention. I know, it's symbolic.
Yeah.
It's a purification.
Yeah.
It's a transition from worldly affairs to a sacred act of nourishment.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It's like you're entering a state of mindfulness
Exactly.
before you even take a bite.
It's about approaching food with respect and gratitude, recognizing it as a blessing from Allah.
Yeah. There's this beautiful hadith, number 3763,
Okay.
that advises eating from the sides of the dish and not the top,
Okay.
because the blessing descends from the top.
Mm.
It's so specific,
Yes.
yet it adds a sense of like reverence
It does, doesn't
to
it?
the act of eating.
It's a reminder to be mindful of even the smallest actions.
Right.
And to approach our food with awe
Yeah.
and appreciation. You know, it's like acknowledging that divine presence in every aspect of our lives.
Right.
Even in something as, you know, seemingly ordinary as eating.
Exactly. And then we have Hadith 3768,
Okay.
which instructs us to come near, mention Allah's name, eat with your right hand, and eat from what is next to you.
It's like a mini manual for mindful dining.
It is. It highlights the importance of like starting a meal
Yes.
with the remembrance of Allah.
Absolutely. You know, acknowledging the source of our sustenance.
Yeah. And, you know, eating with the right hand, it's not just tradition.
No, it's not.
You know, it's also considered more hygienic.
It is.
And eating from what's near you,
Mm.
you know, it encourages a sense of like sharing
Yes.
and avoids reaching across the table, which can be disruptive.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's amazing how these teachings are like both spiritually and practically relevant.
They are, aren't they? It's,
Yeah.
you know, it's about that integration of faith
Yeah.
into every aspect of our lives.
Right.
Even something as simple as eating.
Exactly. Speaking of mindfulness, Hadith 37761 mentions that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was never seen reclining while eating.
Mm.
So what's the significance of that?
Well, you know, reclining while eating, it was often associated with luxury, indulgence.
Yeah.
And the Prophet's practice of sitting upright suggests that posture of respect for the food, for the act of nourishment.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's about approaching the meal with attentiveness,
Right.
gratitude, rather than laziness or complacency.
Yeah. It's a subtle detail, but it speaks volumes about like his character,
It does. It does.
you know, and the values he embodied.
You know, it's a reminder to be present and mindful during our meals.
Yeah.
To appreciate that sustenance that we've been given and, you know, to avoid that excessive comfort
Right.
indulgence.
Then we have Hadiths 3769 and 3770,
Okay.
which offer guidance on eating meat.
All right.
One discourages using a knife, advocating for like biting the meat directly from the bone.
Okay.
And the other advises bringing the bone close to the mouth for efficiency and hygiene.
Interesting. You know, these hadiths, they highlight the importance of approaching food with humility and practicality. It's about appreciating the sustenance provided
Right.
and consuming it with grace and efficiency
Right.
without that excessive fuss
Right.
or formality.
Yeah, it's interesting how like even the seemingly mundane aspects of eating
Right.
are infused with like meaning
Yes, they are.
and guidance in these hadiths.
It's a reminder that every aspect of our lives can be an act of worship and a path to spiritual growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing like the sacred in the ordinary
Yes,
and approaching every moment with intention and awareness.
that's beautifully put.
All right, so I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 21, Food.
We have.
We've, you know, explored the importance of accepting invitations,
Yes.
the guidelines for wedding feasts,
Uh-huh.
the significance of hospitality, and some key principles of mindful eating. But, you know, there's still so much more to uncover.
There is so much more.
Yeah,
We've only just scratched the surface of this rich tapestry of wisdom
exactly.
contained within this book.
And in the next part, we're going to delve into the Prophet's, peace be upon him, food preferences,
Yes.
the reasoning behind certain prohibitions,
Uh-huh.
and some some fascinating anecdotes.
I can't wait.
Yeah, that shed light on the social and spiritual dimensions of food in early Islam.
Sounds fascinating.
So stay tuned.
Yes.
For part 2 of our deep dive into Sunan Abu Dawud Book 21 Food here on Echoes of Ihsan.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Sunan Abu Dawud Book 21 Food.
Glad to be back.
In this part, we're going to explore the Prophet's, peace be upon him, food preferences, and some of the fascinating reasoning behind some specific prohibitions.
I am really excited to dig into this section.
Yeah.
It feels like, we're getting this glimpse into the Prophet's, peace be upon him, personal life.
You're right.
And the culinary landscape of his time.
Absolutely. This section really offers this, fascinating blend of personal anecdotes and dietary guidelines. It humanizes the Prophet, peace be upon him, while offering these valuable insights into, the principles behind Islamic food practices.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with his preferences.
Okay.
What kind of foods did the Prophet, peace be upon him, enjoy?
Well, Hadith 3771 tells us that the bone dearest to him was the bone of a sheep. It's a small detail, but it reveals a personal preference, showing that even prophets have favorite foods.
It's interesting how, that little detail makes him feel more relatable.
Exactly. It reminds us that he was a human being with, likes and dislikes, just like us.
Okay. So he likes sheep. What about specific dishes?
Sure.
Are there any particular meals he favored?
Yes. Hadith 3774 mentions that his favorite food was tharid.
Tharid.
A hearty stew made with bread and meat soaked in broth.
Okay, for those of us who aren't, familiar with tharid.
Of course.
Did you describe it a little bit more?
Yeah, tharid was a staple dish in Arabia at the time.
Okay.
It was simple, nutritious, filling, made by crumbling bread into a bowl and then pouring a meaty broth over it.
Okay.
Sometimes the meat would be served on top, sometimes vegetables would be added.
Okay.
It was a humble meal, yet it was the Prophet's, peace be upon him, favorite.
That's fascinating. It kind of challenges our modern notions of what a quote unquote favorite food might be.
I know, right?
We often think of these elaborate dishes.
Yeah.
Expensive ingredients.
Fancy restaurants.
But here we see the Prophet, peace be upon him, finding joy in a simple, wholesome meal.
Exactly. It speaks volumes about his humility.
Yeah.
And appreciation for, basic blessings. And
Right.
it's a reminder that satisfaction doesn't come from, extravagance, but from contentment with what we have.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to the prohibitions mentioned in this book. There's a cluster of hadiths from 3776 to 3777
Okay.
that forbid consuming animals that feed on filth.
Yes. These hadiths really highlight the importance of hygiene and food safety in Islam.
Oh.
Animals that consume, unclean substances, they're considered impure.
Right.
And their meat is forbidden to ensure the well-being of those who consume it.
So it's not just a religious prohibition.
Right.
It also has this practical basis
It does.
in maintaining health.
Absolutely. Many of the, dietary guidelines in Islam, they're rooted in these principles of health and well-being.
Yeah.
It demonstrates that holistic understanding of the connection between what we eat and our overall health.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, there's another interesting hadith, number 3780, that deals with the permissibility of horse meat.
Okay.
It says that it's allowed in times of need.
That's right. In general, the consumption of horse meat is discouraged in Islam. However, this hadith demonstrates, the flexibility of Islamic law and its ability to adapt to challenging circumstances.
Right.
In situations of extreme need, like, famine or war,
Right.
when other sources of food are scarce, horse meat becomes permissible.
So it's like an exception to the rule.
Exactly.
Made out of necessity.
Exactly. It highlights the principle of prioritizing survival.
Yeah.
Meeting those basic needs in, extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah. Then we have Hadith 3781, which prohibits eating mules, asses, and any beast of prey with fangs.
Right. This hadith, it falls into the category of animals that are considered inherently impure in Islam.
Okay.
The rationale behind these prohibitions, it encompasses, various factors, including hygiene, safety, cultural norms.
Could you elaborate on that a bit more?
Sure. Animals like mules and asses, they were often used for, transportation and labor.
Okay.
And their consumption was seen as disrespectful. Beasts of prey with fangs, like, lions, tigers, wolves, they were considered dangerous.
Right.
Their meat was potentially harmful.
Okay.
These prohibitions, they reflect this holistic understanding of the relationship between humans and animals,
Yeah.
emphasizing respect for certain species and the importance of choosing, food sources that are considered clean and wholesome.
That makes sense. Now, I have to ask about Hadith 3786. It's the one about the lizard.
Oh,
It's always like piqued my curiosity.
The lizard hadith. It's one of those stories that really captures the imagination and, invites this deeper reflection.
Could you recount it for our listeners?
Sure. So the hadith narrates that a roasted lizard was presented to the prophet, peace be upon him.
Okay.
He took a stick and counted its fingers. Then he neither ate it nor forbade its consumption.
Okay, that's interesting. What's the significance of counting the lizard's fingers?
Well, some scholars, they interpret that as a moment of contemplation.
Yeah.
The prophet, peace be upon him, might have been considering the nature of this creature, its place in creation.
Right.
The Hadith also mentions that, a group from the children of Israel, they were transformed into an animal of the land, and he wasn't sure if the lizard was that animal.
So there's a layer of like mystery and uncertainty surrounding this encounter.
It reminds us that there are, mysteries in the world that we may never fully comprehend.
Yeah.
Even the prophet, peace be upon him, with all his knowledge, wisdom, he encountered situations that required, a pause and reflection.
It's a reminder that, we don't have all the answers.
We don't.
And sometimes the best approach is to acknowledge the unknown and proceed with caution.
I agree. It's a lesson in humility and recognizing, the limits of human understanding.
Yeah. I'm curious about Hadith 3809 as well. It's the one about the loaf of bread that had been kept in a lizard skin.
Yes, that's another, intriguing hadith. It narrates that the prophet, peace be upon him, was offered a white loaf of bread.
Okay.
But declined it because it had been, kept in a lizard skin.
What do you make of that? Does it suggest this broader principle about the importance of cleanliness?
It's an interesting question.
And the vessels we use for food.
It definitely is a thought-provoking detail. Some scholars, they interpret it as emphasizing the importance of purity.
Okay.
Avoiding contamination.
Right.
Even though the bread itself, might have been perfectly fine, the fact that it had come into contact with something considered unclean,
right,
it kind of rendered it, undesirable.
So it's not just about the food itself,
right,
but also about how it's handled and stored.
It suggests this holistic approach to food.
Yeah.
Recognizing that its, sanctity extends beyond the ingredients themselves to encompass the entire process of preparation.
Right.
And consumption.
That's a very interesting perspective. It makes you think about the care and attention we should give to how we handle, how we store, how we prepare our food.
It does, doesn't it? It elevates the act of eating from, mere physical necessity to a mindful and spiritual practice.
Right. I'm ready for a change of pace.
Yeah.
Let's talk about garlic and onions.
Okay. All right.
Hadiths 3814 through 3820 explore the etiquette surrounding these pungent ingredients.
Ah, yes. The infamous garlic and onion hadiths, they often bring a smile to people's faces because they address, a very relatable issue. Strong breath.
Right. I mean, Hadith 3814 specifically advises those who consume garlic or onions to avoid going to the mosque.
Yes.
Until the odor subsides.
Can you imagine, the discomfort of being in a crowded space with someone exuding, strong garlic breath?
Yeah. Definitely not the most pleasant experience. But beyond the humor, there's a deeper principle at play here.
Oh, absolutely. It's about respect for others.
Yeah.
And the importance of communal harmony.
Right.
The mosque is, a sacred space where people gather for prayer, for contemplation. Strong odors can be distracting, disrespectful to others.
Yeah.
So this hadith, it encourages mindfulness and consideration for your, fellow worshipers.
Yeah, it's like a reminder to be mindful of our actions and how they might impact others.
Yes.
Even in seemingly, small ways.
Exactly. It's about cultivating that sense of social responsibility and
Yeah.
prioritizing the well-being of the community over personal preferences.
And it's also interesting to note that Hadith 3819 mentions that garlic is permissible if cooked.
That's right. That's right. Cooking it can help to mitigate that strong smell.
Right. Making it more, socially acceptable.
Right.
It shows that there are ways to enjoy these ingredients while
Yay.
still being mindful of the impact on others.
So enjoy your garlic and onions,
Yes.
but do so with consideration for those around you.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that balance
Yeah.
between personal enjoyment and communal harmony.
Now let's shift gears to a few specific foods mentioned in the hadiths. Hadith 3821, 3823, 3824, 3827, and 3828.
Okay.
These offer insights into the Prophet's, peace be upon him, consumption of dates, melon, and butter.
All right. These hadiths offer, this fascinating glimpse into his dietary choices and the simple pleasures he found in food.
Yeah. Hadith 3821 describes the Prophet, peace be upon him, enjoying dates as a condiment for bread.
Mm-hmm.
It's a simple combination, yet it highlights, the nutritional value and deliciousness of these fruits.
Dates were, a staple food in Arabia.
Providing essential nutrients, energy, pairing them with bread, created a simple but satisfying meal.
And then there's the fascinating detail about the Prophet, peace be upon him, meticulously removing worms from dates.
Yes.
As described in Hadiths 3823 and 3824.
Right. That detail, might seem a bit, odd at first glance, but it really highlights his mindfulness, his attention to detail. Even in something as seemingly, mundane as eating dates, he was careful, deliberate, ensuring that what he consumed was pure and wholesome.
It's like a reminder to approach our food with awareness.
Exactly.
Appreciation rather than just, mindlessly consuming it.
It's about cultivating that sense of gratitude for the blessings we've been given and recognizing that even the smallest actions can be infused with meaning and intention.
Hadith 327 highlights the Prophet's, peace be upon him, habit of pairing melon with dates, explaining that this combination balances out the heat and coolness of these foods.
That showcases his understanding of the properties of food, his ability to create balanced and harmonious meals. It's like an early form of, nutritional wisdom.
Right.
Recognizing the importance of combining different foods for optimal health.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these ancient teachings still hold, relevance today.
They do.
As we increasingly, focus on the importance of balanced diets and mindful eating.
It's a testament to that timeless wisdom embedded in these traditions.
And finally, Hadith 3828 mentions the Prophet's, peace be upon him, fondness for butter and dates. A simple yet delicious combination.
It is. It really, humanizes him, showing that he enjoyed simple pleasures.
Yeah.
Just like anyone else.
Butter and dates provide a satisfying blend of sweetness and richness.
They do.
Yeah. It's a testament to the fact that, nourishment doesn't have to be complicated.
It doesn't.
To be enjoyable.
It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest things in life are the most delicious.
Okay, so I think it's time to move on to the final set of hadiths in this section, which focus on cleanliness, gratitude, and the blessings associated with food and hospitality.
Okay.
These are hadiths 3833, 3833, 3834, 3841, 3842, 3843, 3844, and 3845.
These hadiths, they offer this powerful reminder of the spiritual dimension of eating.
Yeah.
The importance of approaching this act with mindfulness and reverence.
Let's start with hadiths 3833 and 3834.
Okay.
They address a very specific scenario.
Right.
What to do when a mouse falls into clarified butter.
It might seem like a strange topic, but it highlights the importance of hygiene and food safety.
Right.
These hadiths, they instruct us to discard the portion of butter that came into contact with the mouse and to consume the rest.
Okay.
Emphasizing the need to avoid contamination and maintain purity in our food.
So even in a time, without refrigerators or modern sanitation practices, there was a strong emphasis on keeping food clean and safe.
Absolutely. It reflects a deep understanding of the connection between hygiene
Yeah.
and well-being, a principle that remains relevant today.
Now let's talk about gratitude.
Okay.
Hadith 341 encourages expressing gratitude to Allah after finishing a meal. So what's the significance of this practice?
Well, expressing gratitude after a meal, it's such a powerful act.
Yeah.
It's acknowledging the source of our sustenance.
Right.
It's a moment to reflect on the blessings we've been given, to
Yeah.
thank Allah for providing for our needs.
Right.
It's a simple practice, but it cultivates, humility and appreciation
Yeah.
for the abundance in our lives.
It's like a reminder to not take our food for granted.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that food is a gift from Allah,
Yeah.
a manifestation of His mercy and care for us.
Hadith 338 and 42 expands on this concept, highlighting gratitude for the ease of swallowing and the provision of an exit for food.
It might seem like, an odd thing to be grateful for,
Yeah.
but, it really draws our attention to the intricate workings of our bodies,
Right.
And the seamless way in which Allah has designed them.
Yeah.
It's about appreciating those, often overlooked aspects of eating
Right.
and recognizing the divine wisdom in every detail of creation.
Yeah, it's like a reminder to be mindful of the entire process.
Yes.
Of eating.
Yes.
From the moment the food enters our mouths to
Yes.
the moment it leaves our bodies.
Exactly. Appreciating the miracle of nourishment and the ease with which, we can sustain ourselves.
Now, Hadith 343 offers some practical advice. Thoroughly wash your hands after handling greasy food to avoid misfortune. What's the connection between washing hands and misfortune?
Well, in some cultures, there's this belief that, greasy hands can attract negative energy or bad luck.
Oh, okay.
This hadith might be addressing that belief while also reinforcing the importance of cleanliness
Right.
and hygiene.
So it's a blend of like practical advice and spiritual guidance.
Exactly. It's about taking care of our physical well-being
Yeah.
while also acknowledging those potential spiritual implications of our actions.
And finally, we have Hadiths 3844 and 345, which highlight the blessings associated with hospitality.
These hadiths, they remind us that welcoming guests into our homes,
Yeah.
sharing food with them, it's a virtuous act that
Yeah.
brings blessings to both the host and the guest.
It's a beautiful reminder of the importance of generosity
Absolutely.
and the power of food to create connections and foster community.
Hospitality, it's a cornerstone of Islamic tradition. It's a way of extending warmth, welcome, a sense of belonging to others.
Yeah.
It's an act that nourishes not just the body, but also the soul.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive.
We have, haven't we?
We've explored the prophets, peace be upon him, food preferences,
Yes.
the reasoning behind certain prohibitions, and some fascinating anecdotes that shed light on the social and spiritual dimensions of food in early Islam.
It's been a fascinating journey, hasn't it?
It really has. We've seen how these hadiths offer this practical guidance
We do.
for navigating the complexities of food and hospitality,
Absolutely.
while also revealing like these deeper spiritual truths.
To do.
I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm eager to hear what else awaits us
Me too.
in the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast. It's incredible how much we've learned from just one book of Hadith.
I know, right? Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 21, Food. It's really opened my eyes to like the depth and the richness of Islamic teaching surrounding food.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about like what we eat, but how we eat, why we eat, and who we share our food with.
That's about the whole experience, really.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach that encompasses like physical, social, and spiritual dimensions.
All interwoven, yeah.
Yeah. And as we wrap up our deep dive, I'd love to hear your kind of overall reflections.
Oh.
What are some of the key takeaways that stand out to you?
Well, one thing that really struck me is the emphasis on balance.
Okay.
We see this in the guidelines for, wedding feasts,
Uh-huh.
where celebration is, encouraged, but extravagance is discouraged.
Right.
We also see it in the, dietary recommendations,
Yeah.
which emphasize moderation and avoiding extremes.
Yeah. It's like a reminder to find that sweet spot.
Exactly.
To enjoy the blessings of food, but without overindulging or becoming obsessed with it.
Exactly. It's about appreciating food as a gift from Allah
Right.
and consuming it with, gratitude and mindfulness.
Another key takeaway for me is the emphasis on community.
Oh, absolutely.
From, accepting invitations to
Yeah.
practicing hospitality,
Yeah.
the Hadith really highlight the importance of sharing food with others and strengthening those social bonds.
Food is such a powerful tool for building relationships.
It really is.
It fosters a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
It helps create, a more compassionate and interconnected society.
Yeah. And the Hadith about hospitality extending for 3 days, after which it becomes charity, is particularly powerful.
It is a powerful one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a blueprint for a society where, everyone is cared for and supported.
It's a beautiful concept.
Yeah.
Reminds us that we have a responsibility to look after one another, especially those who are vulnerable or in need.
I also found the Hadiths about, eating etiquette to be quite fascinating. You know, they offer this like practical guidance on everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
from washing hands to eating with the right hand. It's amazing how like these seemingly small actions
Right.
can have spiritual significance.
It's a reminder that every aspect of our lives, even something as simple as eating,
Right.
can be an act of worship
Yeah.
and a path to spiritual growth.
Yeah.
It's about bringing mindfulness and intention to every moment.
Yeah. The Hadith about eating from the sides of the dish, not the top, because the blessing descends from the top, is a perfect example.
Yes.
It's such a specific detail, yet it adds this like layer of reverence
It does.
and appreciation to the act of eating.
It's beautiful. It reminds us to be mindful of even those smallest actions.
Yeah.
And approach our food with a sense of awe
Right.
and gratitude.
And of course, we can't forget the Hadiths about gratitude.
Absolutely.
Expressing thanks to Allah after a meal.
Mm.
It's such a simple yet powerful practice.
It is.
It cultivates a sense of humility
Yeah.
and appreciation for the blessings we often take for granted.
It's a reminder that food is not just fuel for our bodies.
Right.
It's a gift from Allah.
Yeah.
A manifestation of his mercy
Yeah.
and care for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this profound sense of gratitude for the wisdom contained within Sunan Abu Dawud Book 21 Food. It's a treasure trove of guidance.
Yeah.
It can, enrich our lives and deepen our understanding of Islam.
I agree. These teachings, they offer these timeless lessons
see.
that can guide us toward a more mindful, balanced,
Yeah.
and spiritually fulfilling relationship with food.
So to our listeners, as you sit down to your next meal, remember the lessons we've explored. Take a moment to appreciate the food before you, to eat with intention and gratitude, and to share your meal with loved ones whenever possible.
May your meals be filled with blessings.
Yes.
And may your hospitality reflect the generosity and compassion of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Sunan Abu Dawud Book 21 Food. We hope you found it as enlightening and inspiring as we did. Until next time, peace be upon you.